else to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
You know, dudes, today, I didn't know if I want to put out today's video, in all honesty, because a lot of you guys look at the tutorials, you look at the information I give out, and you really take to it. And I really appreciate that. But there's a large amount of people who just don't like practice, and they will try to justify not practicing in any desperate way they possibly can, thinking that they're entitled to progress, despite not practicing. So today I want to talk about all that. We're going to talk about what exactly you need to practice in order to get good in an art form. We're going to talk about the drastic entitlement in graffiti of people who don't want to practice but still want to get good without practicing, and how it's actually okay if you don't practice. There's nothing wrong with not practicing and having a good time with graffiti, but what does that mean for you? That's going to be what we talk about in today's video. So let's start off real quick with what exactly do you practice, how do you get good, and what does it take to kind of get a professional skill level and professional knowledge level in any art form. Doesn't matter what it is. This is where we kick it off with what's known as the 80-20 split. The 80-20 split describes how 80% of your work is basic fundamental studies, where you're not adding any style, once again for the purpose of understanding the core fundamentals behind it, and then 20% of your work is you just enjoying yourself. In fact, my dad actually recently just laughed at me hysterically because when I was hanging out with him, I drew a stick figure, and he found it hilarious that here I am, a hyper-realistic artist, but yet I'm here drawing stick figures and dancing shapes. Your 20% fun drawings are not meant for anything else other than your own enjoyment. That's it. That's all they're there for. You can take the burden of quality off your shoulders and just have fun. Draw stick figures, draw, you know, stylistic wild style, whatever you want to do a Philly hand style, whatever you want. Do it for your 20%, but never mistaken that for your practice. You're not getting better or smarter when you practice with style, because all that does is make you more ignorant to your mistakes and bake in practiced bad habits. If you do the 80-20 split and you do that on a daily basis, you typically end up learning the fundamentals within a good 3 to 5 years. But we also have the 70-30 split. The 70-30 split, you're gonna do the same thing, 70% fundamental studies, 30%, you know, you doing whatever you want for fun, and once again, that also lands within the 3 to 5 years to learn the fundamentals. However, the 60-40 split, from what I've found working with a lot of people over the years, is this works a lot more for more casual artists. Casual artists who don't really care to learn to a professional skill level or knowledge level. They kind of just want to have a good time and make steady progress. As to where a 50-50 split and lower, I find a lot of people quit at that point, because it takes way too long to make the progress that they want to see, and because it takes so long, they feel like they're wasting their time, and they end up quitting as a result of that. On the flip side of it all, 90-10 and higher, people tend to quit because it's too stressful, they're not having enough fun. Obviously, people exist on both extremes. If you do decide to practice, buckle up for the long haul, because you study the fundamentals for the rest of your art career. You never stop studying the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the only place progress happens in. It doesn't happen anywhere else. When I say the fundamental studies, when I say basics, when I say keep it simple, all that good stuff, I'm referring to one topic specifically, and that is the 3 pillars of art. Now, the 3 pillars of art are amazing because they are responsible for art's existence within our universe. And I do mean that very literally. Like, art genuinely cannot exist within our world without the 3 pillars of art first existing. So the very first pillar, and the most important one, is the elements of art. The elements of art are line, shape, form, value, space, color, texture. And these 7 fundamentals go by another name, which is known as the laws of all art. And the reason they have this name is because it is physically impossible to partake in any visual art form without using the elements of art. You have to use those, which means you gotta learn them. And in fact, this is where most of your progress in art is going to happen. Unfortunately for graffiti artists up until recently have never really practiced the elements of art. The next pillar of art is the art form specific fundamentals. And this one is largely responsible for the creation of different art forms and the categorization of different art forms. And that's because, well, it's essentially just the list of fundamentals that makes up the art form. Upon creation, every art form automatically has its own art form specific fundamentals. It is impossible for any art to be created without an art form specific fundamental, or a fundamental set. So, as you might imagine, this changes from art form to art form, but for graffiti, it is going to be letter structure, negative space management, letter name weight, letter name positioning, and flow. Now for the last pillar of art, that's going to be technique. And technique pretty much just refers to how you utilize the tools at your disposal. Oh my god, I had a random hiccup. I'm sorry. The third pillar of art is going to be technique, and that just refers to how you use the tools at your disposal and how you go about performing the art that you're doing. And that's all technique is. But do understand that technique does not define the art form. This is a common misconception within graffiti, where a lot of graffiti artists believe that graffiti has to be done illegally, it has to be done with spray paint, and it has to be done on a wall. All 3 of those things are not true. You can do graffiti legally, in your books, digitally. You can do it with any number of things on any number of surfaces. It's still graffiti because the fundamentals set. said. Remember, the art form specific fundamentals are the things that dictate what an art form is. So on that note, this is what you have to study in order to get good at any art form. And you have to study all three of these. You can't get away with just studying one of them or two of them, because then you'll only become a fraction of the artist you could have been. Now the issue is a lot of graffiti artists, they don't want to practice this. Like, they hear about these things and they furiously revolt against the idea. They try to justify not studying the fundamentals in any desperate way they possibly can, trying to find loopholes, trying to find, you know, different exceptions to the rule, believing that they are going to be that exception. But exceptions are exceptions for a reason. If everyone was the exception and most people believe they are, then, well, nobody would be the exception. If they really believed in the ideology that they claim to believe in, that being that everything is good just because you created it and there are no fundamentals, if that was truly what they believed, then they wouldn't look to seek more information. There would be no more information to look forward to, because what you're already doing is good enough. So they know that's full of crap, I know that's full of crap, but once they get the critique, they want to immediately fall back on that excuse. They want to immediately fall back on, oh, well, you know, graffiti doesn't really have any fundamentals. Can I get good at graffiti without learning the fundamentals? No, you can't get good at anything without learning the fundamentals. Could you imagine wanting to be an athlete, thinking you're gonna play in the NBA or the NFL, and you never practice a single day in your life? You'd be downright ridiculous, and like, it would not be a fathomable thing. That's not a cohesive thought. There is not a single thing in life that you can become good at and actually have a professional skill level as well as a professional knowledge level without practicing. You need both of those things. And to think that you are somehow entitled to progress without practicing is asinine. Like, what do these kinds of people believe graffiti artists and just artists in general have been studying all their careers? Do you think Saber's been sitting there studying nothing all this time he's been sketching in his books? Do you think Greg Simpkins was sitting there not analyzing anything, just brain dead when he sketched? No, they're analyzing certain fundamentals, which suggests there's something there to learn. That lack of discipline and that entitlement is a huge issue within graffiti. And this isn't the standard for any other art form. Every other art form understands that there's fundamentals you have to learn, and you're not good until you learn those fundamentals. To get to a professional skill and knowledge level, these fundamentals are a prerequisite. They're not something you tack on after the fact. And this creates a really positive thing for hobbyists in any other art form. Because in any other art form, even hobbyists understand that they have to learn these fundamentals. They just opt not to. And they come to terms with that fact. They understand, hey, I'm choosing to ignore those fundamentals. That way I can just focus on having a good time, and I'm completely okay not knowing any of that stuff. I know my work isn't good. I know I don't know those things. I don't pretend to know those things, and I'm happier for it. That's what the hobbyist does in any other art form. But that's not what the hobbyist does in graffiti. The hobbyist in graffiti claims that they have this eldritch knowledge. They claim that they are masters of graffiti. They claim that they have style. They claim to understand certain things that they could not possibly even begin to fathom, because they never even glanced at what the fundamentals are telling them. And here's the thing, I have friends in fine art and graffiti, been doing graffiti longer than I've been alive, and they've come to terms with not studying the fundamentals. Some people that I know have been doing graffiti for, 50 plus years, and they have never once practiced a single day in their life, and they are okay with that. They understand they don't know anything about graffiti. They don't pretend to know anything about graffiti. They don't pretend to be anything other than an amateur, because that's what they are. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't have it both ways. You can't never practice and be a professional. And you can't be a professional without practicing. In order to be a professional, you have to have practiced. And you have to have studied the fundamentals. You have to know the fundamentals on a knowledge level and skill level. Because if all you have is just a professional skill level, then you're only halfway there. And at least when you actually genuinely practice, it's guaranteed that you're gonna make progress. As for when you just slam your head against the wall adding style all the time, you're not even guaranteed to make progress at all. In fact, you're more likely to become worse at graffiti or any art form, and more likely to become more ignorant about that art form than anything else. But dudes, that's gonna pretty much wrap up today's video. Hopefully this helped some of you guys see the value in actually practicing and having the discipline to do so. But on top of that, hopefully this video kind of let some people know it's okay to not practice. You just have to come to terms with what that means for you. All in all, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you want to learn more about graffiti, check out the best graffiti tutorials anywhere online right here at the top. And on the bottom, we got more graffiti content for you guys. And also, we of course have the books I published in the description down below. If you want to go ahead and pick those up, they are an amazing resource for learning basic pieces. You're going to learn basic letter structure, as well as basic techniques like drop shadow 3D, 1-point perspective, and shading. But as always, once again, thank you guys for watching.